guys, how you doing? This is Manga, and I'm here today to bring the review for One Piece episode 919. So we begin off with the episode of Nami and Shinobu, and we find out that they actually do manage to get away with a little piece of information. Based on how long we see Nami actually looking through the hole, it would seem like, what, they was caught fairly easily, but they actually got some information. They know of a port, they know there's going to be some weapons there, so they've got a place to hit. Before that happens, though, before we find out this information, we have the whole thing of them running through the attic. Shinobu's in a panic attack. They manage to get out of the attic, and this is when it's revealed to us that Shinobu has a fear of sharp weapons. And now, based on the arc we are in, Wano, the country of samurai, heavily hinting that the majority of weapons that we see within this arc will be blades. It just got me thinking, especially when I read it in the manga. When everything kicks off, when we roll up to Kaido and his boys ready to war, how are you going to be much help when you can't deal with sharp weapons? I also find it very contradictory because she also carries a sword. But anyway, that's how we kick off the episode. This is what we find out very early on, and then we flip over to the next bit of the episode, which is basically involving Sanji entertaining the ladies via his cooking. And now he's supposed to be there looking for samurai, but instead he's entertaining the ladies. And now the ladies are loving the food. The queue, and not the queue is long, the queue is massive, snaking and all sorts. But he's not there doing what he's supposed to be doing, and this grabs the attention of some of Kaido's boys, and they ain't happy about that. So he's getting the attention he wants, but he's also getting the attention he doesn't want as well, and that may cause something later on. The last bit of the episode to talk about is back in the prison life with Luffy and the kid. And now, basically, for me personally, what this bit of the episode does for me is just show, what at least I think what it's trying to do is just show you that Kid and Luffy are fairly equal. And I say fairly equal because there's stuff you need to consider when you compare the two. Now, they do carry the same amount of blocks. They do have the same effect after eating food. Luffy blows up, and that's because of his devil fruit ability. But we also see Kid do this within this episode as well, and it is mentioned about what kind of bodies do these two people have. Now, it was mentioned twice, I think, definitely minimum of twice. But I think that thing was a gag thing. But the blocks and just earning the same amount of food, I think these are legitimate comparisons between the two. And now I say it's hinted that they're fairly equal, but there's other stuff that you need to consider as well. One, they are at their base. Well, at least we know Luffy's at his base. Gear 1, he's got Gear 2, Gear 3, Gear 4. These things make him stronger. Another thing to consider here is that Kid was able to do all the things Luffy did within this episode with one arm. So, one arm versus being able to hold something with two, would Luffy have been able to do the same thing with one arm? Another thing you need to consider is that the Sea Stone Prism handcuffs is the Sea Stone effect one more than the other? There's things you have to consider there, but I do like to think that Luffy and Kid are on equal terms, or at least was on equal terms. I always had the impression back in pre-time skip that they, especially at that point, they were equal. They were equal, 100% equal in every sense of the word. And what gave me this idea was the whole thing where we see Luffy do the Gear 4 I can't remember what attack it was, but the Gear 4 punch, and then Kid retaliated with a big, metal fist with the same thing. So I always thought from there they were equal. Now, stuff's happened. We ain't seen Kid in a while. We don't know what he's capable of. So we don't know the equal. I think that I would like to think at this point in the story that they are fairly equal and very equal. And the only thing that sets Luffy apart from Kid at this present moment in the story is the advanced observation haki. I would like to think that at this part of the story, but there's too many factors to consider, like I mentioned. So, like I said, the part of the episode was about comparing them, and we have a little story element to it as well. So we see them working, we see them earning the food, we see them receiving the food, we see them eating their food, and that's when the vice warden comes into the story, and he's like, "Yo, where's all the food?" And he wants to see the people responsible for the food. So we bring out Luffy, we bring out Kid, and this is where we find out, like, you guys need to chill. You can't. I know you're angry, but you can't attack the vice warden because one, there will be punishment involved. And this is where Luffy's getting smarter, comes up with a plan to deal with the warden alongside the Kid, to deal with the warden, but not get punished for it. So, as you saw in the episode, they deal with the warden and avoid punishment, and they are slowly, if not become, the heroes of Udon, the prison that they are now currently in. So that happens, they defeat the vice warden, Luffy picks up the old man, saves the old man, and they're on their way. So that's everything to have in this episode. I thought it was a very good episode. 3-star rating and call it a 3 level. Actually, I'm going to change that rating. The episode wasn't really action packed and it wasn't exciting for the rating that I would usually give this rating for, but because it's been a very long time where I haven't been thinking to myself, this episode is dragging, and I was enjoying the episode, and I just wanted to see more of it. So I'm actually going to bump it up to a 4. Of course, guys, I'm asking for your thoughts and opinions. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, but make sure to take care. Have a nice day.